Today I'm talking about using technology to access a flexible and remote workforce. And what I'd like to do firstly is just to give you a sense of why I'm talking about this. I am a flexible and remote worker, so I'm definitely in that space. I started my business about 3 years ago, jobs board careermums.com.au, and we target parents typically aged between 30 and 50 that are coming back from having children and looking for flexible and skilled roles preferably. My business is based on technology. That is what it is, so I need to keep up to date with it. I'm also an HR consultant, as Clayton mentioned, and we go into corporates and we help them to deal better with working parents, so parents coming back into the workplace and flexible work arrangements. Some of my clients include state trustees, Clayton Utes, Johnson & Johnson, the Australian Sports Commission. There's a range of clients. I just want to reinforce I'm still a flexible and remote worker, so you can do it. My hours are not typical. They are worked over a 24/7 period, not a 9 to 5, 5 days a week. I have 3 children, aged between 9 months of age and 6 years. And I think bottom line is I am the future workforce living now. Firstly, I want to just go back again. I mean, we always talk about these things. I think we have to remind ourselves constantly, particularly in the recruitment game, of what they're dealing with now and what they need to think about when they're speaking with people and how they hire people. Firstly, I want to talk about life stages and particularly the life challenges that are coming up for a lot of people. Firstly, we have the Gen Ys. There are many things said about Gen Ys, and they're all pretty good most of the time, but they expect flexibility. They are the age group that expect it. These workers are no longer cube dwellers. They are natural multitaskers and they live and breathe technology. The second major group is working parents. And I think what's really important here, I mean, working mums particularly, but a lot of people have to be reminded now that half of the workplace are in fact women. 50% and potentially a little bit more now. And I think a really important point to state there is that women have babies. So there's a lot of changes that need to come to ensure that we keep those people in the workplace going forward. Mature age workers, what is going on there? The challenge of retiring or not. For many older people, that is not something they have to think about these days because of the global financial crisis. They need to stay in. But I think a very common buzzword that's being used now is retirement transition. And that means that businesses are trying to keep them in whatever capacity, to mentor, to share their skills, to do a range of things, to keep them in there because they're exceptionally skilled people. And for all their comments about people being ageist, it's just a waste of time thinking like that. Second major one, caring duties. Now this is something I think that may surprise people. This was taken by the Australian Bureau of Stats in 2009, that 41% of all employed people care for someone. It doesn't just mean children. There are about 75% of people in that group that do care for children aged 15 and under, but the next most commonly cared for age range is 75 and over. I think we all need to remind ourselves that it's going on. A lot of managers typically in their 40s and 50s are going to have to come to realise that soon because their parents are going to need to be cared for. The third major point, transport traffic problems. I moved to Canberra 4 years ago and I personally don't see any traffic problems here despite a lot of complaints from time to time.
You don't live in my suburb.
Sorry?
You don't live in my suburb.
Oh, okay, right. But, you know, Sydney, Melbourne, Brisbane, shocking transport problems. We hear about them all the time. Optus in Sydney, they changed their location to North Ryde, and with that change, they actually made a change to have their core hours between 10 AM and 4 PM. Beyond that, what they let staff do is that they can actually log on from home first thing. They can log on at 6 o'clock in the morning, and what they then do is that they can do some work then, wait for the traffic to go, and then hop in the car and come into work. And it's just a much smarter way of working. It's crazy that there's not more, I guess, employers like that. Another one which people don't often think about is sea change, tree change. I'm a tree changer, there's a lot of sea changes. But again, the Australian Bureau of Stats, between 2001 and 2006, 2.2 million people moved. So they moved to a different city, they moved to a different region. Half of those people are aged between 20 and 39. And according to this survey, are skilled. So that's something that we need to consider too. Successful case studies. There are so many of them out there telling us how people are trying to handle flexible workers, remote workers. And these case studies show that it is helping bottom line, it is helping staff being happy and they are productive, all of those different things. So I just think we need to re-explore that, start looking at more of these case studies and actually start doing something about it. The population trend, obviously, and that was referred to by Ross, it's going to impact on skills without a doubt. This is a graph, I don't like to show too many graphs in these types of presentations, but this I think is just one that really speaks in volumes. That by 2050, the Australian Bureau of Stats basically has pointed to the fact that 26% of the population will be over 65 and only 15% will be aged between 0 and 14. So it's coming and there's a very short-term view, I think, at the moment on this topic, but it is coming and I think people need to be prepared. Okay, so we're now going to move on to what is the solution to harness this workforce, obviously technology. But I think what's really important is what does technology need to deliver, particularly now and into the future. Of course it needs to maintain the productivity of workers, both in and out of the office, without a doubt, that is what it needs to do. But I think secondly, and I'll refer to a couple of case studies later, it needs to connect team members, and I think that's where the challenge lies. So to be able to create forums, to keep people in touch, for people who are travelling, who are working in different regions, they need to stay in touch. It's all a part of corporate culture. The current technology that is available to keep the wheels of business spinning and to be able to tap in flexible workers, I think right now is impressive, and I think that we've all used it, seen it. Some of those things certainly include remote access. It's being done and it works. And I figured that if IBM have 140,000 employees that can work from home, anyone can do it. And they state that it is successful and that it works. Cloud computing. Has anyone, this is a reasonably new term for me, but there's probably a few IT people in here. Cloud computing, does anyone know what that is? Okay. Really what this means going into the future is that there'll be no need for a hard drive or a CD, DVD drive. Instead you simply need an internet connection, a screen, and you'll be able to hook up to a central supercomputer which will hold all of your programs and your files. And this will do a lot in terms of presenting an advantage for data security, and it will also be very conducive to a flexible and remote workforce. Simple things like calendar sharing software, just to be able to tap in and see what your work colleagues are doing from day to day, whether they're actually working on that day. Instant messaging software, to be able to have status icons, to know that someone is actually at their computer working right now. You can actually get in touch. Practical stuff for people working from home, to be able to have a good headset so that they don't get headaches or neck cramps because they need to be on the phone a lot. Simple stuff.